All the Problems with the Mandalorian. Chapter 2. The Child. We begin with the Mandalorian with Baby Yoda in his pod walking through a canyon. Kuiil made a big deal about you have to use a Blurrg. It's the only way to get to the camp, even though he has a spaceship that he decided to leave behind. So now, not only did Kuiil take him across this planet, he doesn't know where he's at, but Kuiil left with the Blurrgs. Mando is in a place he doesn't even know and has no transportation. They made this huge deal out of the Blurrgs and him learning how to ride it and then riding it to the base, and it just shows that the Mandalorian, or more specifically Favreau and company, aren't thinking, because now the Mandalorian is walking back on foot with a very valuable bounty. You should have used your spaceship from the beginning. The capturing of the bounty would have been much easier and you would have transport. Not to mention a guidance system to get you the hell out of there. You have no clue where you're at, and you're expected to just walk back. How does he know where Kuiil lives or how to get back to his ship? I suppose he has some sort of homing device that gets him back to his ship, but how would he know how to get back to Kuiil's if he's never been here? If he doesn't know the land, if he had to ride a Blurrg? The blaster dent from IG-11 is still in his chest plate, so they got that right. But, as I mentioned in Chapter 1, the knife scratch mark is gone and never existed. In the canyon, he now gets attacked by some thugs. He wrestles with and knocks down the first thug and ends up taking his weapon. It's something like a staff with an axe end on it. So we see the Mandalorian holding with both of his hands the thug's staff axe. Another thug appears. He clashes the staff that he just took with the staff of the second thug. And the very next shot, the staff has magically disappeared. They have such little attention to detail. It's not on the ground, it's not picked up by someone else, it's literally not there, like it didn't exist. During the fight, he unslings his rifle and he uses it kind of like a staff, but there's a moment where he has his back turned and one of the thugs literally scrapes across his back. It doesn't cut his cape, he doesn't flinch, he's not at all hurt, cut, or anything. It was just a scrape with a spark. A third thug appears. He knocks down the second thug, and one of the three starts running for Baby Yoda's pod. Why wouldn't he first neutralize or kill the Mandalorian? What good is it going to do when he just knocked down your two boys and you're running with your back turned to the Mandalorian towards the pod? Is the Mando just going to sit there and let you take it? Obviously not. It's just not logical. You would neutralize your main threat, the Mando, before going for Baby Yoda. He starts running, Mando aims his rifle and blows this guy away. Mando's weapon is particularly powerful. It hits things and they just pretty much disintegrate. If that weapon is strong enough to just totally disintegrate the thug, later Jawas, and whoever else, how come there's clothing? The clothing should just burn up and evaporate, yet the clothing is still there. There's a fob on the ground and it's beeping. If the fob survived, why didn't the guy's staff axe survive? He was running at Baby Yoda with the staff and it's gone. If the guy just burns up and disintegrates, all of his clothing should as well, and so should his tracking fob. What they're trying to do is show you, oh look, there's a tracking fob, so obviously these guys have a bounty for Baby Yoda, when they very easily could have just put the tracking fob or other tracking fobs by the two other thugs that he neutralized. Before he leaves, he's going to regroup and look at these guys. He could have found a tracking fob by one of the guys that he knocked out, as opposed to this guy he just disintegrated, and it makes no sense that the tracking fob not only is still there, but it's functioning perfectly. In the next scene, Mando is repairing his left arm. He doesn't really sustain much of a hit on his armor during the battle. However, that big slash across his back apparently didn't do anything. He's not holding his back or hunched over or attending to his back. By the way, Baby Yoda is in his little pod. Next scene you see him, he's walking along like a little kid over to the Mandalorian. How did he get out of this pod? Did he float out? Did he crawl out? Mando doesn't notice or have any concern that a baby is crawling or flying out of this bassinet. It just doesn't make sense. If you're going to have Baby Yoda constantly popping out of his pod, at least once you got to show us how is he doing it. Is he crawling over the edge? Is he forced floating out? He's constantly getting out of this little pod and out of other situations, and they never show it. This little 1 foot guy is moving around like it's no problem. So Baby Yoda gets close and starts reaching his arm up towards Mando. Keep in mind, this is just before The Rise of Skywalker was released. While we all thought he was going to heal him at this point, we knew what they were insinuating. They were teasing us at, will Baby Yoda have Force powers? Will he heal the Mandalorian? Force heal causes major problems throughout the entire Star Wars saga. They did this on purpose, not only to make Baby Yoda special, but most importantly, this was to give validity to Mary Sue Ray, who's going to start force healing things. No problem with him fixing his equipment, but I don't really remember him getting slammed in the chest. Why is he having to fix his chest plate? Furthermore, what is with all these electronics in his suit? I don't have a problem with it, but as they never mention it, they never discuss it, they never elaborate on it, we don't know what it does or why it's even there. Why doesn't he just have armor? What's with all these electronics in his suit and his armor? I think it's cool if it serves a purpose and if they explain it and show what it does, but they don't. Like most things in the show, they don't explain it at all. The fobs, nobody knows how they work. The original Star Wars didn't explain it every little detail, but it explained things enough to where you had a grasp of what's going on. All of Disney stuff, they just put things out there and we have no clue of what this stuff is or how it works. It's so vague. Why are all these electronics in his chest plate and throughout his suit? We saw in chapter 1 that he had a bunch of electronics under his pauldron. He takes it a step further and hits a switch in his chest plate and a light comes on and a sound whirs. So what is the purpose of this? Is it a sensor? Is it a heater? What is going on? We don't know because they don't elaborate and explain anything. Once again, Baby Yoda gets out of the bassinet. It's cute. It's funny. Okay. But how's he getting out? And why is Din Djarin so oblivious to things that this baby just keeps popping out? If you're babysitting and you're in the same room, you have one eyeball on the TV or whatever you're doing and one eyeball on the child. And if the child is crawling over the side of a bassinet or crib, you're conscious of this because they can fall and break their damn neck. So Mando is like in fantasy world, while meanwhile this child keeps popping out of his little egg. He's not a daddy. He's not conscious of all these things, but he's a bounty hunter. He's supposed to recognize details. Just like he can't see Baby Yoda right in front of him, well then how's he going to know if somebody's coming up behind him to slash his throat? This is the point here. He's not realizing his environment, that things keep happening around him, and he's not cognitive of these things. That is not a bounty hunter. Not a real one, not a good one. Baby Yoda gets out of his little bassinet, approaches Mando with his hand out as if he's going to heal him, and you can see here his little hand is right next to Mando's wound. When Baby Yoda gets out of the bassinet again, he has his hand up as if he's going to heal Mando. Very next shot, Mando's standing up to pick up Baby Yoda, and his little hand is now back down. He was next to Mando with his hand up because he wanted to heal him, and the very next shot, his little hand is down. Now we see the Mando walking along with the Baby Yoda egg. The sun is blaring. He's coming over a ridge in the middle of nowhere. We don't know how long he's been walking. 3 hours? 6 days? He was forced to go to this camp with Blurrgs, and now he's forced to walk back with a bounty, not knowing where he's going, no water, no supplies, no nothing. He's also got the bounty under jeopardy. Doesn't that child need to pee? Doesn't that child need to eat or drink? Isn't that child baking inside of that little egg? To be fair, Mando comes up on his ship, the Razor Crest, not to Kuiil's camp. One could argue that he has a homing device and that's how he got back to his ship. We come up to his ship and we see a ship and it's in total scraps by Jawas. Jawas are expert scavengers. I'm not taking anything from them. But they're all of what? 3 feet tall? How would they have the strength to be ripping apart a new spacecraft? It's not new, it's pre-Empire, but it's in good new condition. It's not like an old junky ship. They're just peeling it like a banana. They have half, if not most, of the ship ripped apart. How long has the Mando been gone? A few hours? Man, Jawas are quick. If not, they're implying that it's been several days. So again, back to the Kuiil problem. Kuiil abandoned him with this bounty, and he's walking around for days in the desert. How did the Jawas find the ship? Maybe they have sensors, maybe they have word of mouth. They're experts at what they do. Okay, but Sand people didn't find this? Jawas did? Comes over the small ridge and looks down to see the Jawa stripping his ship. He then proceeds to take the scope off of his rifle to look down into the canyon and see what's going on close range. Why did he remove the scope? Why didn't he just lift his rifle up to his helmet and aim like a normal person? It makes no sense to remove your scope. then you have to put it back to then hold it back up and shoot at someone anyways. Why wouldn't you just scope in with the rifle like a normal sniper would do? If you look in this one shot, he's got the scope to his eye in his hand. Very next shot, the scope is magically back on the rifle and he begins to shoot. Does Mando not have a freaking alarm, security system, electrocuting plates so that if an intruder touches it, a vocal deterrent, something, anything, automatic guns? Today, a kid with a 1990 Honda has got an alarm on it. I mean, come on. You're the best bounty hunter in the parsec and you have no kind of security or lockdown on your ship? Your most valuable possession? You don't even have a backpack, so your ship, outside of maybe that rifle on your back, is your most valuable possession. And you've left it to where Jawas are just picking it apart. Look at where and how it's parked. It's not consistent with Chapter 1. Here you see, the back ramp is up against the wall, like when he first landed. But then as I showed you in Chapter 1, the ship was turned around, he walks down the ramp and out to an open valley. Look at the open area where he's standing. Is that consistent to where he was in Chapter 1? No, there was rock walls around. He was looking down into a small valley where the Blurrgs were. Now he's in front of this like vast desert. This is totally inconsistent with where the ship was in Chapter 1. As far as we know, in Chapter 1, he trained on the Blurrgs, and they immediately went on their little journey with the Blurrgs. He didn't go to his ship, repark it. If anything, he should have parked it at Kuiil's. Instead, he decided to leave it out here in the middle of some canyon in the middle of nowhere, just waiting to get stripped, damaged, blown up, trapped. Someone could put mines or bombs on it. He has no type of alarms or sensors telling him that his ship is under duress. So I get it, you're pissed. You start shooting at Jawas. He just disintegrated another Jawa. Guess what? His little suit is still there, and the part of his ship that he was carrying is still there, but somehow this blaster rifle shell just kills the being inside of the clothing and nothing else. Doesn't seem to hurt anything else except for the specific person that it hits. There's a ton of Jawas down there. What are you going to solve by blowing one up? I suppose their mentality is, I'm going to blow one up, they're going to see the consequence, and they're all going to run. You can't handle a pack of Jawas? You can't show them that you're a Mandalorian and that is your property and that they better give it up or else? What do the Jawas do? They all scurry into the Sandcrawler, close up the ramp, and start driving off. So now you've put yourself in a position that your ship is in scraps, they're driving off with most of the parts to your ship, you've alerted them to the problem, they're now not going to talk or do any kind of negotiation because you've attacked them. You have this child that you're carrying along with you, that you're putting in jeopardy, and now you have no recourse but like a dumbass to run after this huge Sandcrawler. After every shot, he has to reload a round. He shot a Jawa, ran down, and then kneels and shot at the Sandcrawler. He didn't reload. It's a small detail, but he didn't reload. Next shot, he's running behind the Sandcrawler without his rifle. It's not on his back, it's not in his hands. So apparently he just dropped his rifle in the sand, screw it, my most important weapon. Obviously there's scavengers around because Jawas just raped my ship, but hey, I'll just leave my rifle. And Baby Yoda is tagging along, floating in the back. He's not worried about his ship, he's not worried about his rifle, he's not worried about his bounty. He's just running like a jerk-off behind the Sandcrawler that he escalated this whole situation to begin with. So he runs and grabs a hold of the Sandcrawler and starts climbing up the side of the Sandcrawler. Okay, no problem. That's logical. At this point, when you've got yourself in this situation, what else are you going to do? Fine. It's called a Sandcrawler for a reason. It's a massive, heavy vehicle. It shouldn't be moving that fast. This thing is trucking along, and they're about to try to squeeze Mando on the side of this rock ledge to scrape him off the side of the Sandcrawler. This thing is moving pretty quickly. They even show the Jawas in the cockpit, chuckling like, and he pushes the throttle faster. Could it be a new model? Could it be something else? Okay, whatever. But we, again, have to go off of what's canon, off of what has been referenced. Unless you show some sort of explanation that there are other Sandcrawlers out there, this isn't a totally new planet with totally new creatures and a totally new vehicle. This is a carbon copy of Tatooine with Jawas that have a Sandcrawler. So the rules, the parameters of what's happening here should be the same from A New Hope. There's taking from New Hope, right? Member berries, fan service.
We're trying to draw from all over from Star Wars. As with a lot of the stuff that we're doing, a lot of the designs and things are things from old video games, like the Incinerator Trooper. The E-Web cannon goes back to, I think, Empire Strikes Back. Get the Death Troopers from Rogue. That's when they popped up, Rogue One. So from the sequels and the other properties. And also we're using a lot of stuff that was built for other movies, like aliens and suits things. We're using resources from the features.
We're doing fan service like creatively, like what would this be cool?
For those who know, they'll appreciate it. Those who don't, it just looks like cool Star Wars stuff.
It's obvious that they're basing this off of Tatooine Jawas and the Sandcrawler, A New Hope. Yet, this Sandcrawler seems to be a hot rod. When he's coming up on the rock wall, he pulls himself up on a ledge and avoids getting scraped. Mando just avoided getting scraped by the wall. He's laying down. Jawas start popping out and tossing trash down at him. Rather than just standing up or moving out of the way, it's just light pieces of trash anyways, and he's getting hit by it anyways. He jumps down, hangs from the ladder, to just instantly climb right back up the ladder with trash still being tossed at him by the Jawas, just like it was a second ago. And then he comes back onto the platform that he laid on to avoid getting scraped. He then proceeds to continue to climb up while still getting trash tossed at him. There was no point whatsoever in him jumping down the ladder and climbing right back up it. The side of the Sandcrawler, it has so many little edges and lips and even steps for the Mandalorian to be climbing up on. It's not like a smooth, flat surface like a ship would be. It has all these cuts and ridges and steps on it. An experienced rock climber could climb right up this thing. They're trying to make it dramatic like he's climbing up on his cable, but look at his feet. He's on a ledge that they set up for him to be standing there. The stuntman is just literally hanging from a wire 2 feet off the ground, and his feet are on a ledge. It's not even like he's hanging or got his foot in a little ridge. It's literally built, that little ledge there, for him to dramatically be climbing up the side. So logically, the Jawas knock down the bar that he's grappled to so that he falls off the side. To their perception, he fell off. One of the Jawas looks over, and of course, like typical superhero type thing, he's there at the ledge and he puts his hand up and grabs the Jawa that's looking over the edge and climbs over the edge. And he ends up on top of this thing with no weapon, not on guard or anything. And there's 9 Jawas pointing blasters at him, just waiting for him. He didn't think it through, he didn't take cover, he didn't do anything. He just jumped up expecting nothing to happen, like these Jawas are just going to stand here. Naturally, what did the Jawas do? All 9 of them shock him with their stun guns. So Mando goes falling off the side of this Sandcrawler. Look at the height of this Sandcrawler. Falls straight on his back from a very high distance into the ground. You can almost see as if there's like a cutout where he fell into, dug into the ground. He does have armor. He's in better physical shape than the typical person, but that was a hell of a drop. He should have a concussion. He should have a broken back. He should have broken bones. All of his organs and insides would have been totally squished and jarred. He probably would have broken ribs. Realistically, he probably should have died from this fall. There's a lot of other things it could have done here instead of him falling from the top of a Sandcrawler backwards and landing straight on his back. His whole body should be broken right now. His helmet probably should have cracked. If not his helmet, his skull, and he should be in really bad shape right here. The screen does go black, the Sandcrawler is gone, so we don't know how much time passed. Maybe a few minutes, maybe a few hours. Look at his left arm as he lays here. You see how his elbow is hanging over that raised edge where his body's laying? So if nothing else, from that height of impact, falling and his arm hanging over the edge there, his elbow should have snapped. If you look back to where he falls, he indeed falls with his arm hanging over that edge. His arm should have snapped because there's no dirt underneath to stop the blow. His arm is freely hanging at the elbow over a ledge. So just the weight of his body coming down, while the mass of his body landed flat, his arm was hanging over that edge and should have snapped. The very next shot, he's laying flat on all ends, with his arms out, almost like he's making an angel. And then back to the next shot, it's now different, where his arm is hanging over an edge. He lands with his arm over an edge, then they cut to him on a flatter surface, then they cut again to him on a other surface with his arm hanging over the edge. The shot where they're looking down on him, he's with his arms at his sides on a flat surface. Look how Mando falls off of the Sandcrawler. He falls off very straight at a right angle. He slams on the ground and his feet are straight pointing at the Sandcrawler, just like he fell off. It then cuts, and the very next scene, he's now to the side. He's at an angle where his feet are to the left. This was filmed in 2 different times, and they didn't even bother to lay him down in the same position. They filmed the scene. It's probably one was the stuntman that fell off. Then they brought in Pedro, and he just laid down, but they didn't bother to put him in the same position. So we see him sit up. He regains consciousness. Remember, just a few minutes ago, he was patching up his arm and fixing his armor. You don't see a big gaping hole there. You don't see that it's stitched up. His armor, cloth, whatever it is, seems to be fine. There is a sort of a band there, but that's just where the joining of his suit is. There's the lower kind of forearm covering, and then there's the upper arm covering underneath his pauldron. But he literally had this big gaping hole there. He doesn't have a bandage. There's no blood. There's no kind of stitching. The material isn't ripped. You see the back of his helmet. It's not dented, marked. Hell, it doesn't even have dirt on it. This whole time, Baby Yoda is just sitting there watching him, which, okay, what else is Baby Yoda gonna do? But any other time, Baby Yoda's hopping out of his bassinet like it's all good and was trying to heal him. So why didn't Baby Yoda float over and try to heal him or look closely at him? Why didn't he jump out and, try to force heal his head or something? Shake him, hey, are you okay? Anything, nothing. Baby Yoda's just sitting there watching him. Any other time, Baby Yoda's doing stuff and getting involved. This time, he's just looking at the Mando like blacked out. There's no Tusken Raiders. There's no anybody moving around. If I was the Jawas, after this guy blew up my people and attacked us, I would have stopped the Sandcrawler. I see that he's blacked out. I would have either captured him as a prisoner. I'm sure there's some worth to him. Or stripped all his stuff. Take his Beskar helmet. Take his ammo and armor. I would have totally stripped the Mandalorian of his things at this point. If you look on the side of the Mandalorian, he has, you can see 3 of them, little explosives on his belt. We see them several times throughout the show, and he uses them later. Why didn't he just put one of those on the side of the treads of the Sandcrawler, blow out the tread? They can't go anywhere, and at least you've now given yourself some sort of fighting chance instead of climbing up a moving Sandcrawler. He's unaware of his own equipment, his own skills, and constantly gets himself into messes. It cuts to him walking. There's junk all over the ground, so he's by the Razor Crest. Now his rifle is back on his shoulder, and he's got his blaster back. Okay, he left the rifle, he found it when he came back. Okay, the blaster fell when he fell next to him. Wouldn't it have made more sense to put a little detail and show him pick up his blaster? Or that he came back and, oh thank God, there's my rifle, and then he picks it up, kind of gathering himself. Instead, he's just walking along like it's all good. He's not dirty, he's not hurt, he's not ripped any clothing. He's just the same as he was before, and he's got his weapons and everything's back to normal, and he's back looking at his ship. The Jawas really worked over his ship. Even his gun locker is empty. How stupid are you that not only is your ship just wide open, but now all of your weapons are gone? The Jawas literally took all of your weapons, so how are you even going to defend yourself when they've taken all your weapons? And these are little, short, semi-intelligent Jawas. What if Bosk, or another bounty hunter, or raiders, or pirates, or a Jedi, or a Sith, or Rey the Scavenger came upon your ship? You're wide open for me to just take whatever parts I want, whatever weapons I want. You don't have a special lock on your weapons locker, as I've established in the Chapter 1 review. So now anybody, even Jawas that can't even reach the control panel to open the locker, have gotten into your locker, managed to climb up and take all of your weapons. There's not a single weapon in this bare locker. His ship is completely in sparks, wires hanging everywhere. You can see inside and outside of the ship because all the armor plating is gone. Cockpit and tries to fire up the engines. Like, you're gonna be able to fire anything up. You've got wires hanging out everywhere. There's sparks flying everywhere. And even if you got the ship to fly, what are you gonna do? Fly a piece of Swiss cheese? I want you to see the amount of damage that is done to this ship. It would take a very skilled crew several days, weeks, to get this ship back in order. not only are you missing tons of parts, but there's broken parts. Joints of the armor would have been busted, wires would have been cut and split and stripped. Things are yanked out and all over the place. It's not just like a Lego where you just have to snap everything back. You need to make severe repairs, soldering and taping and bolting and fixing joints and replacing bolts and screws. It would be a massive undertaking at this point to fix this ship. The engines don't start, it's missing more than half the parts, and everything is sparking everywhere. Look at this shot here of him walking down the ramp out of his ship. The ship is Swiss cheese. Look at up top, the engine is missing all kinds of parts. I would imagine myself with other humanoid type beings that we wouldn't be able to just walk up and yank pieces of the side of the ship off of it. So it's pretty amazing that these Jawas are able to just strip the ship. Look at the top of the ship. Look at the amount of damage and stripped parts from this ship. If you took this to a professional shipyard that had all the tools and pieces, it would literally take them several days, probably weeks, and maybe even a few months to get this ship back in order. Remember that when he came up on his ship, he came over a ridge. Remember the angle of what he was looking at his ship. In front of his ship is just wide open space. So it's not even consistent as him walking up on his ship with Baby Yoda when the Jawas were there stripping it. He came over a ridge and was shooting down at the Jawas, remember? Favreau can't keep his set locations straight from one scene to the next. You see Mando come into the broken down Razor Crest with his rifle on his back. He opens the gun locker, the rifle is there on his back. He then slams the doors closed, and guess what? His rifle's gone. Back down out of the cockpit, his rifle is still gone. He walks out of the ship with the rifle on his back again. Baby Yoda is in his hands, and Baby Yoda's little egg is at the bottom of the ramp. Very next shot, Baby Yoda's inside his little egg, and while it's hard to see, Mando does not have his rifle on his back. Very next shot, his rifle is back. He's walking with Baby Yoda again. We don't know how long, an hour, 5 days, we have no clue. He's in the middle of nothing. Blaring sun in the middle of the desert. He again abandons his ship, which not much you can do about it anyways. Now his ship is just laying there. What's to keep the Jawas from coming back? What's to keep Tusken Raiders from coming and taking the rest of your ship? If he supposedly parked here when he first arrived on this planet in Chapter 1, how far was Kuiil from his home base that Kuiil was there to save him from the Blurrgs? What a coincidence. It's very convenient. And it seems to be quite a distance from where he parked his ship to Kuiil's camp. How does that make sense? How do you even remember how to get back to Kuiil's camp? Out in the desert, you're dying of thirst, hunger, you're tired, you're demoralized because your ship has been raped, you're worried about this child. You're not going to have any bearings on a planet you do not know in that hot sun. Why wouldn't you have parked your ship where you know how to get back to it and that Kuiil could overlook it? So he walks up on Kuiil's camp. Kuiil, with his back turned, knows the Mandalorian has walked up. Kuiil knows his bearings. Kuiil seems to be intelligent, but Mando doesn't see Baby Yoda moving around right in front of him. He says, "I thought you were dead." Well, you certainly left him for dead, didn't you? You left him in the middle of nowhere with no transportation, and now he's walked back hours, if not days, to get to your camp. So Kuiil says, "This little guy is what's been causing all this problem." And Mandalorian says, "Well, I'm stuck here. My ship has been destroyed." And Kuiil says, "Stripped, not destroyed." How does Kuiil know that? Did Kuiil talk to the Jawas? Did Kuiil collaborate with the Jawas? What's going on that he knows is stripped and not destroyed? If he's presuming it's Jawas, okay, I get it. Jawas aren't really destroyers, they're scavengers, so they would have stripped the ship as opposed to attacked it and destroyed it. How does he know that it's Jawas? It could have been Tusken Raiders, it could have been other bounty hunters, it could have been thugs, so it could have been anything. How does Kuiil know that it's stripped and not destroyed? This is poor storytelling. This is, rather than elaborating on the conversation or having Mando express something, it's just, well, we need to move the story along. So Kuiil knows it's been stripped and it's because it's Jawas, and no worries, we're going to fix it because I know the Jawas. How do you know it's Jawas, Kuiil? It's either very lazy story writing or Kuiil knows something that he's not supposed to know. Because right there, me personally, I would have been like, wait a minute, how do you know it was Jawas? Did you have something to do with it? That's what a bounty hunter would have done. That's what a bounty hunter would have presumed and questioned. How do you know it's Jawas, Kuiil? 1 minute he's a clueless little boy with bombs right there visibly on the side of his belt. The next minute, he's the best bounty hunter in the parsec. Well, which one is it, Jon Favreau? You can't have it both ways. Either he's a badass or he's a rookie in training. We have no problem with him being a noob. If the story's going to be about him learning and growing and developing, but it must stay consistent. He can't one minute be a dumbass and the next minute be just wrecking shop in a prison ship. It's very inconsistent and poor story writing. So Kuiil says you can trade with them. They're little freaking Jawas. Go in there and blow their shit up. They stole your ship. Now you're going to have to negotiate with them? And here we are back on Blurrgs. Mando loves being on Blurrgs. He's on the back of a little sled with Kuiil pulling him along on the sled. Why? Kuiil not only had Blurrgs on his farm, he also had at least 2 of them, because remember the ones that Mando helped him quote-unquote capture? I mean, that Kuiil had to save Mando's ass because he should have been dead in Chapter 1? Those 2 Blurrgs? He has at least 2 of them. The 2 that they had to use to ride across the desert to get to the encampment of the thugs to get Baby Yoda. The 2 that he abandoned Mando at the camp with and went back home with. Kuiil should have a minimum of 2, yet Mando, that went through the whole point of training and learning how to control a Blurrg and blah blah blah, is now on the back of a sled, not riding his own Blurrg. Why? You've established that he's ridden a Blurrg. You wasted our time with him calming and training and taming and riding a freaking Blurrg. And now he's on the back of a sled. Why? Why not have Mando riding his own Blurrg? You would not only move faster, he would have his own transportation, which he's going to need to come back because now they're going to have all the parts on the sled, plus Mando's weight, plus Baby Yoda's weight being pulled by one Blurrg. Furthermore, they could bring 2 sleds to make sure that they can get all the parts, because what if all those parts don't fit on one sled? Instead, they got Mando sitting like a jerk getting rained on the back of the sled. Why isn't he riding his own Blurrg? Why did you waste our time with Blurrgs if he's not even going to use the damn things? So now Kuiil, with the sled, comes up on the Jawa camp and says, greetings. They're natives. They live somewhat in his area. He's probably had interactions with the Jawas. I don't have a problem with him speaking their language or interacting with them, having some sort of camaraderie with them. But this again brings up the point. If they're friendly with Kuiil, why did they attack Mando's ship? And how did Kuiil know that it was Jawas? Mando doesn't say anything about the Jawas. So it's as if Kuiil has word on the street that the Jawas stripped Mando's ship. Now maybe what they're implying is that Kuiil thought he was dead anyways, and he has no use for Mando's ship, so the Jawas were going to go and strip it. And maybe they even had a conversation like, hey, is your boy around? Nah, he's probably dead anyways. Okay, well, we're going to go strip his ship. I don't know. It's not explained. It seems very problematic that Kuiil knows very well that the Jawas did it, where they live, what's going on. Why didn't Kuiil stop them? Why didn't Kuiil have Mando park his ship at his camp? None of this makes sense. The Jawas, of course, have all the parts scattered about. They're looking at all the pieces. The last thing that I believe is that he knows all the parts that belong to that starship. He may have general idea of the parts and the workings of it. He's going to obviously recognize a lot of it because it's that bright, shiny steel color. But how does he know every bolt, every wire, every clip, every hinge, filter, connection, gasket? He has no clue. He's not only going to recognize all the parts that are missing, know which ones to get back, and I guess he has to just trust the Jawas that once they make their little deal and trade, that they're going to honestly be like, oh, okay, well, here's all your parts. How do the Jawas even remember what parts? The Jawas, I don't believe, are conscious of, oh, well, this is an XY5 gasket, and this is a Z27 metal plate. No, they're just scavengers. They're just ripping pieces. They don't even know the value or what half these pieces are. I will give the Jawas some credit. I mean, they're scavengers and junk traders, so they probably have a general knowledge, but they're not going to know every part of a pre-Empire Razor Crest. For them to even keep track of what parts were from the Razor Crest or all the tons of other junk that's inside of that Sandcrawler, never mind be honest enough to make sure he gets every part back. They had no problem with stripping his ship and stunning him and running away. Mando certainly isn't going to recognize all the parts. Kuiil has probably never seen a Razor Crest before. Yeah, he worked for the Empire. Yeah, he's been around. Yeah, he's a mechanical guy. But does he know every starship out there? No. Does he know all of the 1 million parts of that starship? No, of course not. Only the manufacturer is going to know all the parts. That's like someone that works on airplanes. Unless you actually work at Boeing and have seen the blueprints and assembled one, you're not going to know all of the 36,000 parts or however many parts on a piece of aircraft. So Mando no way is going to know all the parts of the damn Razor Crest. Kuiil says you need to drop your rifle. Mando says, I'm a Mandalorian. Weapons are part of my religion. But remember those words, because 2 minutes ago, he dropped his rifle and went running after the damn Sandcrawler. In Chapter 1, he didn't have the consciousness to pull his damn blaster and shoot at a Blurrg. So for someone that claims this is part of your religion, you seem very unaware and very unpreoccupied with your weapons. Look at the sled. Look at Baby Yoda and notice that he's there to the right of Mando, looking over the edge of the little sled. Now look at the sled. This is just a few shots later. Baby Yoda's missing. Very next shot, Baby Yoda's right there. Now we see him from behind, looking over the edge of the sled. Mando drops his blaster into the sled because Kuiil says you gotta drop all your weapons. If you look in the background, Baby Yoda's there, looking over the edge of the sled. So Kuiil and Mando sit down, kind of like at a campfire, to talk to the Jawas and negotiate. Kuiil says the Jawas will trade all of the parts for the Beskar. First of all, Mando has very little Beskar on him. He's got the pauldron and his helmet. But okay, fine if they find value in it. But here's the problem. How do Jawas know what Beskar is? They probably shouldn't. I can't imagine they've come across many Mandalorians. They're expert scavengers. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. They know what Beskar is. If they know what Beskar is, they know what a Mandalorian is. Why would they be messing with a Mandalorian ship and stripping it? Why would they, when a Mandalorian poofed 1 and then 2 of the Jawas, did they just run off and act like it was all good? They all should have just put their hands up and gave up right there, knowing better what a Mandalorian is, and gave him back his parts. Instead, they did the exact opposite. Not only is this an inconsistency with the lore of Star Wars, if they know what a Mandalorian is, they wouldn't behave this way. But it is also showing that Mando has zero respect because the Jawas, instead of saying, oh shit, you're a Mandalorian, we better give you your parts back, are saying, well, if you want your parts, you gotta give us your freaking armor. So no matter which way you slice or dice this, it's a problem. Either they totally have disregard for Mandalorian, this particular Mandalorian to make it worse, or they don't understand the gravity of the situation, which conflicts with directly everything else happening in this chapter and Star Wars lore. And why do Jawas have red eyes? They've always had yellow eyes. Are they going to argue, well, because this is a different planet, so there are different species of Jawas? Jawas are Jawas. You're doing member berries here. Why are the Jawas different? Because you want to make them your Jawas and not have to give George Lucas rights for selling Jawa toys. These are different Jawas, so we have the rights to them. The point there is that if Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, or anybody else at Lucasfilm has respect for the creator and we love Star Wars and we want to member berry everything, then you should be doing everything 100% accurate. You're doing things inaccurately, 1, out of stupidity and because you don't know what the hell you're doing, and 2, because you don't want to have to write a royalty check to George Lucas. So how is that being respectful to his galaxy? So Mando says, I'm not trading anything, these are my parts, they belong to me. He starts talking to the Jawas. The Jawas say, you sound like a Wookiee. Maybe they came across a Wookiee at some point. Maybe hanging around the cantina, a Wookiee has come around. How often do Wookiees go to these desert planets in the Outer Rim? Wookiees are from a lush forest planet, tropical environment. How many Wookiees, outside of being involved in the Clone Wars, being a bounty hunter, being a Jedi, or being a scoundrel, a smuggler, are going to be on these Outer Rim desert planets? Would some? Sure. But realistically, how many Wookiees would these Jawas have interacted with to know what they look like, know who they are, what they sound like? Why would you even know what the hell a Wookiee is? Never mind make a reference that you sound like a Wookiee. And obviously he doesn't sound like a Wookiee. They're making fun of him, of course, because his Jawa-ese is poor. Using that reference is again a member berry. It's not consistent or logical that a Jawa would even know what a Wookiee sounds like. Maybe 1 or 2 of them caught one in a cantina, but all the Jawas know what a Wookiee sounds like, that they all get the joke and are laughing. It's not very realistic. Mando gets pissed and shoots his flamethrower. How about this? He totally misses. He doesn't even hit anybody, do anything. No one is going to fear you if you're swinging around your sword but not cutting anything. Now, had you burned down that Jawa that was talking smack to you right then and there, the rest of them are going to be like, oh shit, he's a Mandalorian and he's not playing around. Instead, he, I don't know if on purpose or just because he's such a poor bounty hunter, totally misses with his flamethrower and flames over the Jawa's head. In any event, it makes him look foolish. Either he's unskilled and looks stupid, or he's not coming through with what he's saying. He's saying one thing, but acting a different way. No one is going to respect or fear you when you do and say two different things. So Kuiil says he's Mandalorian, he can't give up his armor. He mentions it to the Jawas and they're all like, oh, well, okay, yeah, I guess he's a Mandalorian, so he can't give up his armor. Well, then this goes back to the previous problem. How do you know what a Mandalorian is? How much interaction would you have with the Mandalorians? And if you have interaction with Mandalorians, you know who and what they are. Why would you strip his ship? Why would you risk yourselves of stripping his ship and then running from him, knowing that he could vaporize all of you? Either inconsistently you do not know about Mandalorians except for the fact that it's convenient for the conversation, or you know that this guy is just such a chump that who cares? So then Kuiil says, well, there must be something else we can trade for, and the first thing that the Jawas do is go for Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda's worth something in their eyes. They would think, well, that must be worth something, but at no point is the conversation that he's a bounty or that he's valuable. I mean, it's a quiet place, so word probably travels. Maybe they know about the bounty, but there's no indication of them knowing what or who Baby Yoda is or his worth. Since when did Jawas trade in people? They're not child slavers, they're scavengers. They go after droids and ship parts. What are they going to do with the Baby Yoda? Unless they're privy to the fact that he is that specific bounty that everybody's been looking for, what are the Jawas going to do? Go to the Bounty Hunter Guild and be like, oh look, we've got Baby Yoda. Please, 1,000 bounty hunters along the way are going to decimate these Jawas, take the bounty from them. Why would they be willing to trade for Baby Yoda? What value would they have in a little green child that they don't know anything about? If they know about Baby Yoda, minutes ago when they knocked Mando off the side of the damn Sandcrawler and he was blacked out, why didn't they just stop the Sandcrawler, walk back, grab Baby Yoda, and go about their way? Do you see the inconsistency? Obviously they didn't know the value of Baby Yoda because they would have stopped and grabbed him right then. After the Jawas say, well, we'll take Baby Yoda in trade, Mando turns around and looks and tells the Jawas to get away from him. The Jawas start to scatter. There's 2 Jawas, one on either side of Yoda. They both scurry off. Then the next shot, they're both back next to the sled. They basically run off twice. So then they say, we will require the egg. I understand that to certain people, creatures, beings, species, different things are delicacies. This egg, although he doesn't know what it's for, are they going to eat it or does it have a creature in it or whatever, this egg is obviously important to the Jawas. So I get it, they could maybe want to trade for it. Very next scene, they're traveling in the Sandcrawler to where the egg is. Mando and Baby Yoda are in the cockpit with the Jawas, just hanging out, traveling to the egg. Why would he be in the cockpit? A minute ago, he was shooting your Jawas. You've got his parts and you're giving him a hard time, yet you're letting him ride along with you in the cockpit of your Sandcrawler. What are you, buddies now? Why isn't he in the back, in the hold, going along for the ride? And where's Kuiil? Kuiil's not around. So why isn't he with Kuiil in the back of the hold, having a conversation while they travel to this location? It makes no sense. The Mando's in the cockpit, all hunched over. Why would the Jawas even trust him in their cockpit at this point? They arrive at the location. The massive door of the Sandcrawler opens. Mando, with Baby Yoda, starts walking down into this cave where the egg is at. Why are you bringing Baby Yoda? Kuiil's right there with the Jawas. Why wouldn't you leave Baby Yoda safe in the crawler with Kuiil? Granted, he doesn't know and trust the Jawas. He barely knows Kuiil, so I guess the mentality is to keep him with you, fine. But why are you going to risk this baby, your bounty, in this cave situation when you don't know what you're getting into? Look at Mando. He's perfectly clean all the time. This guy fell off the side of his Sandcrawler, has been through all kinds of stuff. When has he ever had time to shower or clean up or do anything? And his suit is perfectly fine. It's not ripped or ruffled. It's not dirty. He's always shiny. Look closely. Left side, his right, the side of his helmet. He doesn't have any kind of attachment there. You see that it's relatively flat. Yes, there's a little section that's sticking out, but it's relatively flat and close to the helmet. There's no attachment or gadget there. It's just a part of the helmet. So Mando walks into the cave. Obviously, the further he gets into the cave, it gets darker. You see him and his helmet, it's the same, the flat surface. Very next shot, he reaches his hand up, and now there's this big light attachment on the side of his helmet. It just magically appeared. It obviously couldn't come out of his helmet because that big of a light wouldn't fit inside the helmet, and at no point does he show that he has a light or that he attaches it. It's just there, a flashlight just appears on the side of his helmet. And we're not talking about a little light emitting from the side little plate of his helmet. He literally has like a flashlight mounted to the side of that piece of his helmet. It's an attachment. At no point did it retract or make a sound or pop out. It wouldn't even fit in that space inside the helmet, nor did he from his belt grab anything and clip it on. It just appeared, a giant-ass flashlight on the side of his helmet, which he doesn't even need because a Mandalorian's helmet has sensors in it. He can see infrared and night vision and all kinds of things in his helmet anyways. It's literally fan service. Not fan service as far as Star Wars, but as far as like, oh look, he's in the dark, so he's got a light attachment. So Mando's looking around the cave and he comes across kind of a mud mound, which you kind of assume is an egg, and then a big eyeball opens up. You see blaster shots inside the cave, and Mando comes flying out of the cave as if he was tossed and lands on his back in the mud. Look here in the air. His rifle is gone, nor does he have his blaster. He walked into the cave with the blaster in his hand and the rifle on his back. He's now laying in the mud. He seems like he's in more pain and duress here than when he fell off the side of a damn sandcrawler. Look to his right. No blaster in his holster, and it's not in his hand, and it's not anywhere around. So now he's lost the blaster somewhere in the cave apparently, and if you look to his left side, his leg is up, and what do you see there right next to him? His rifle that he just flew out of the cave with. No rifle that should be inside of the cave, and instead the damn rifle is now reappeared and it's next to him in the mud. Look at how the rifle is sitting. You can see the scope is up on top. The rifle is just sitting, no problem. It didn't get buried in the mud. It didn't roll around. It's just laying nicely next to him on his left side. The rifle that was not there a second ago when he flew out of the damn cave. Look at this creature. It looks like a papier-mâché creature that some kid made in art class. What this looks like to me, I grew up in the DC area, is the prehistoric animal exhibits in the Smithsonian. Very poor quality, and it looks completely fake. This does not look like an organic creature. Mando picks up his rifle that's right next to him. It's fine, it's not covered in mud. It was just laying next to him. He then goes to shoot at this creature. The rifle now magically is completely covered in mud. It wasn't a second ago. Just because it's covered in some mud doesn't mean it's not going to fire. That doesn't even make sense. There's literally assault rifles that you can take underwater and they still fire. This was one of the benefits and advantages of the AK-47, is that you could get mud in it, you could get it wet, you could do all kinds of things, and this thing would still fire. That's why it's the universally most used assault rifle, because the damn thing is so durable. This is Star Wars, futuristic technology, and a little mud gets on your Boba Fett fake rifle, and it doesn't shoot. How stupid is this? He's completely covered in mud. Why? He just fell on his back. If this was a 1800s musket rifle, okay, maybe. But this is Star Wars. A little bit of mud should not prevent this rifle from firing. Look at this papier-mâché, Smithsonian, fake-ass dinosaur. This thing looks terrible. And I'm not talking about the design. If the creature looks a certain way, fine. I'm not a big fan of the way his mouth is made, or I don't think he's a very interesting character, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the quality of the product. Yes, they're trying to give you the illusion of muddy fur, but please be honest with yourself and stop defending this show because you're thirsty for Star Wars. This is nowhere in the quality or realm of what George Lucas did. Compare this. Go right now and look at Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Go to the Geonosis Arena and look at the difference in the quality of the craftsmanship, the makeup, the way that the creature moves, acts, sounds, and looks compared to this in 2019 with millions of dollars of budget, better technology, and knowledge of creature creation. Created by the same damn company, Lucasfilm. This thing looks like a papier-mâché school kid art project. It's a disgrace to Star Wars. He was trying to open his rifle, I guess, to arm it? So maybe your argument would be that it wasn't loaded and that's why it didn't fire. You're a bounty hunter. Why wouldn't your rifle always be loaded and primed and cocked and ready. If you're a gunslinger, forget that you're Star Wars and a bounty hunter. You're Clint Eastwood. You're John Wayne. You're a gunslinger in the Wild West. You're always going to make sure that your revolver is loaded and that the safety is off, if they even had a safety. And he even checks his weapons and is clicking his stuff and making it look all good. You didn't bother to make sure that your most important weapon, the rifle, is loaded? Furthermore, why did you walk in with a blaster? Why didn't you have your rifle out so that you could shock anybody or anything that's inside of this cave with your fake Boba Fett cattle prod rifle? Because Boba Fett didn't even have a rifle, it was a cattle prod, and he would have known to walk out with it to shock something. Here you've got a rifle / cattle prod, and you didn't even have it out. Now you're in this predicament, and the damn thing's not firing. Why? Because you didn't have it loaded? What kind of bounty hunter are you? And then to make it worse, he can't open it to load it because there's mud on it. Not even old mud that dried. It's fresh mud that just got on it 2 seconds ago. And you can't open the rifle to put a round into it? Who is writing this nonsense? And just like the Blurrgs, Mando stands there, doesn't use his flamethrower, doesn't use his grappling hook, doesn't use any explosives, doesn't use any of the other stuff that he may potentially have. He doesn't roll out of the way, he doesn't jump, he doesn't dive, he doesn't try to grab or jump on the damn creature. He just stands there and gets bucked with the horn and tossed far back and back into the mud. Just like in Chapter 1, Mando spends the majority of his time on his ass. Here we go again with the rookie nobody bounty hunter who's supposed to be the best in the parsec. Paper Mache Beast is focused on Mando, attacked Mando. Mando is who went into his cave. But for whatever reason, the Beast turns his attention away from Mando and goes after Baby Yoda. Why? Why would he be bothering with the smaller target that didn't infiltrate his cave? Why would he bother with Baby Yoda? The creature just went charging for Baby Yoda's on the other side of this mud area, and instead of going after Baby Yoda, they just dodged him, and the Mando's still on his ass in the mud. The Beast now turns his attention again to Mando. So why did you turn it away from Mando in the first place, and why now are you going back to Mando? Again, who writes this stuff? Now Mando sees that the Beast turns to him, looks at him, and starts charging at him. He doesn't get up. He doesn't run. He doesn't roll. He doesn't jump. He doesn't do anything. He's sitting on his ass, allowing this creature to come up, bearing on top of him. Just like he sat with the Blurrgs and put his arm up like, no, don't hurt me. He's doing the same thing, only this creature's much bigger. He's just sitting on his ass. And as it comes closer, he starts shooting his flamethrower. Well, the flamethrower didn't do anything with the Blurrgs. You failed there. 5 minutes ago, you tried to torch a Jawa 2 feet in front of you, and you couldn't even hit that. And you think that you're going to do anything with your flamethrower on your ass against a huge creature that's, 3 to 5 times larger than you and is covered in wet mud. What the hell is your flamethrower going to do? It's like thousands of pounds coming running at you. It's just going to trample over you. And you're not getting up, moving, rolling, doing anything. You're just sitting on your ass using your worthless flamethrower again. The flame does nothing. The creature literally jumps on him. The horn on his head is bigger than Mando, and he slams Mando into the mud with that horn. Thousands of pounds. Right here, Mando's entire body should be broken. All his ribs and spine and everything should just be crushed and snapped and broken. He should be done. Dead. If not instantly dead, he's through because he's going to be paralyzed, broken. No way is he going to move, get up. This is over. Once again, Mando should be dead here. He sits up and starts the flame back going again, and now the creature is backing off. The creature literally was on top of Mando with this massive horn, crushed him, and all of a sudden Mando is now deterring this massive creature with his little flame. So Mando's flame runs out, and he then shoots his grappling hook at the side of the face of the creature. What the hell are you going to do with that? Why didn't you wrap up his legs or use your grappling hook on a rock to pull yourself out of that position? Instead, he shoots it in the face, attaches himself to the damn thing, and what does the creature do? Naturally, goes running and drags Mando around in the mud. The writers are either complete airheads, or they like Mando looking stupid, Like I said, Mando's not very intelligent, and he does a great job of making himself look stupid. Why would you attach yourself to the side of this creature that's several times larger than you, that has several times your weight and strength, to just get dragged around in the mud? He's dragged around and detaches his cable and goes tumbling over to the side. It's easy to miss because it happens quickly, but if you look on the ground next to him, his wrist gauntlet, like the armor plating, is there on the ground next to him. It fell off of his forearm. Next shot, he's starting to stand up. You can see that same arm guard is still on the ground. He gets tossed and he's across the way, all covered in mud, and the arm guard is back on his wrist. It's all back to normal. Also notice here, his pauldron has come off of his shoulder. It's hanging off. Well, why would that happen? When in chapter 1, you could see that it gets clipped down into his shoulder piece. Why would this even come off like that? And underneath that shoulder piece was all kinds of little electronic lights and gizmos and fiber optics. And here, it's just a piece of cloth. It's like the pauldron just kind of loosely hangs on his shoulder. When in chapter 1, it was this big elaborate thing with electronics and clipped onto his shoulder. Notice again, his blaster is not in the holster. He lost that blaster inside of the cave. Remember that. So Mando can barely get to his knee. He's got no weapons. All of his stuff is busted up. The only thing he's really left with is this little knife. Creatures running at him, and you see the Mando, he's like completely defeated. He's got no energy. He's barely even able to pull the knife out of his boot. You can tell that he's totally defeated, not just by the fact that he's tired and trampled, but he is showing that he's defeated, like he has lost the will to fight. Like in chapter 1, why do the male characters always become self-defeating in Disney Star Wars? Why would a Mandalorian bounty hunter be giving up? Mando doesn't try to come up with a plan, doesn't try to do anything. He can barely hold up the knife, and he does like he did with the Blurrg, just holding up his hand like, no, don't kill me. He just holds the knife out in front of him, not even like in an attack stance. He's just barely holding the knife, and what's that gonna do? Is this giant creature just gonna conveniently say, oh, well, I'll run into your blade and kill myself? He even puts his head down like, oh, well, I'm done. I'm just going to hold the blade here and hope for the best. Now the creature is just feet away from him. And of course, Baby Yoda uses the Force to stop the creature. Once again, Mandalorian is on his deathbed and someone else externally has to save his ass. Boba Fett never needed anyone to save his ass. All the other bounty hunters didn't need anyone to save their asses. They all were proficient and professional on their own and got out of all kinds of messes. I know that a lot of that is EU and lore stuff, but it's still the fact and the matter. All these other bounty hunters didn't need help from external sources. They did their thing. Chapter 1, it was Kuiil with the Blurrgs. He stunned them. Now we've got Mando about to get finished by this giant horn paper mache beast, and Baby Yoda has to save his ass. What kind of Mandalorian bounty hunter are you? So here we officially see Baby Yoda use the Force for the first time. A toddler wouldn't even be aware of the Force, much less capable of harnessing it, using it, and you had Grandmaster Yoda, 900 years old of experience, the wisest of all the Jedi, insanely powerful in the Force, more connected arguably than any Jedi has ever been to the Force, and he had to struggle to lift the X-Wing out of the swamp. This baby who can't talk, who probably pees himself every half an hour, who has no understanding of himself, the world, and especially not the Force, is able to stop and lift this massive, I don't know how many tons of a beast. Ask yourself, is that realistic that a toddler, even if it's the chosen one, going to be the greatest of all Jedi, more powerful than Yoda, would a toddler that doesn't know anything of the world be able to use the Force to lift this massive beast? How many Jedi or Sith would even be able to do this as an adult, experienced, with strength and knowledge? Yet Baby Yoda is doing this. Notice Mando how he's getting up very slowly, hunched over, barely able to stand up. Very next shot, he's standing straight up, holding the knife up in the air as if he's totally ready to fight. A second ago, he could barely hold himself up, he could barely stand up, and now he's standing standing up perfectly straight with the knife up as if he's Mr. Tough Guy going to fight. Not only is this completely unrealistic that this little child is doing this, but Mando is standing there just looking like dazed and confused instead of doing something and attacking this damn beast that just tried to kill him and the baby. I get it. You've never seen the Force before. You're a little bit shocked and amazed, but you're a bounty hunter. You have to keep a clear head and stay focused on your objective. What you should be focused on is attacking and or killing this damn beast. Instead, he's standing there watching. So he doesn't react until now the beast is dropped back on his feet and could potentially attack him. Proceeds to stab this massive beast with his little knife on the side of his neck. Not in the eyeball, not in the brain. Mando has continually shown us that he's not very smart, that he's not very worldly or knowledgeable, so you can't argue that he would know where to strike this beast. It was just a random strike. And he kills this beast with just one stab in the side of the neck. If you look here, the knife isn't even all the way into his neck. It's not even halfway. It's like the tip of this blade is in this creature's neck. So Mando stands there and watches, and at the last moment just randomly stabs this massive beast, and we're supposed to believe that it keels over and dies with a blade that isn't even all the way inserted into this beast's skin. Then he proceeds to dig the knife in deeper and twist it as if he's doing something. The damn thing is dead already. You can see it on its side with its tongue hanging out. Now you're a tough guy and want to twist the blade around? Look at the size of that creature next to Mando. How many Mandos would fit in just the belly of this creature? But that little blade in the shoulder, neck area of this animal is going to kill it? The horn itself is bigger than Mando. Now, in this shot, Mando walks over to Baby Yoda's bassinet. While we all know that it's complete bullshit that this little baby even knows about the Force, never mind is using it and doing something so OP as to pick up this ridiculously heavy creature, I will give them the one redeeming factor that it seems every time he exerts himself with the Force, he passes out. But that doesn't eliminate the preliminary problem of he shouldn't know how to use the Force. He has had no training. He has no world experience to even know what the hell the Force is. What Favreau's implying is that the Yoda species just inherently has the Force and that they automatically know how to use it.
That's not how the Force works.
The Force is not specific to a race, being, age, sex, species, none of that. The Force flows through everything in the galaxy and the universe.
Feel the Force around you. Here, between you, me, the tree, the rock, everywhere.
Some creatures randomly are chosen to be stronger in the Force. Some beings have more midichlorians than others. Anakin had more midichlorians than Yoda, remember? So it's not that inherently Yoda babies are going to have the Force. That is a farce created by Favreau and Filoni. The Force randomly chooses beings, and they certainly do not know how to harness it until later in life. As further proof of this, in The Phantom Menace, Anakin is in his Podracer, and one of the cables on the side breaks loose. It's flapping around in the wind as he's going along. Anakin then proceeds to grab a magnetic tool out of the cockpit and points it at that coupling and grabs it with the magnet, pulls it to him. He then takes it off the magnet and reconnects it to his pod. George Lucas had spoken specifically on that he had considered having Anakin use the Force to pull that coupling back and then reattach it. But George Lucas himself said that doesn't make sense. Anakin is too small, has no training, nor awareness or connection to the Force. He has a unspoken subconscious connection to the Force, but not a knowing, knowledgeable connection to the Force. Anakin would not know how to use the Force to pull that coupling back to his pod and reconnect it. That's why he used the magnet. So if the chosen one, a humanoid with longer arms and easier physical capacity, could not use the Force at 10 years old, which is a greater scale of age than Baby Yoda at 50, Anakin is much more developed in his life, and he is the chosen one, and he could not use the Force in that instance. So for Baby Yoda to just inherently be able to do this is a bunch of phony Filoni. Mando pulls his knife out. Look at his left shoulder. You can see his pauldron. It's got the 2 dents in it. His cape is off of his shoulder, and you can see the lower edge of the pauldron goes towards the upper quarter of his upper arm. It's very obvious that it's there, and it bulges out. Mando now walks up to Baby Yoda. You can see that the pauldron is gone. It's not puffed out. It is just the cape over his left shoulder. Also, look at the side of Mando's helmet. There's no big light attachment on the side there, is there? Moments later, Mando's back in the cave, retrieving the egg. Guess what's there? A big light attached to the side of his helmet. Mando approaches the Sandcrawler with the egg. Look at his left shoulder. It's just the pauldron. He does not have the cape over it. His left shoulder, you can see the pauldron clearly in sight. He hands over the egg. Next shot, the Jawas are walking off with the egg. Pauldron is gone. The cape is back over his left shoulder. Mando is also holding what we have no clue of in his right arm. It potentially could be his right gauntlet, but his right gauntlet is on his right forearm, so it doesn't really make much sense what that is that's in his arm. The Jawas take the egg and slice it open. They immediately all start to dip their little hands in there for a gooey type of honey substance. In their world, that egg may be very rare, very difficult to get, and a total delicacy, a very sweet treat that they very rarely, if ever, get to enjoy. But that stupid egg for a Mandalorian ship's parts, not even some of the parts or half the parts, but all the parts after he killed your people, after you went through this whole thing of stripping his ship, and you're just going to give him back all the parts because he brought you a honey egg that's going to last 15 minutes between all of you, and that's gone. I don't pretend the Jawas are super intelligent creatures, but it just doesn't make much sense for junk traders to give up an entire Razor Crest ship's parts for an egg. Look at Mando when he walks back up to Kuiil. His pauldron is now showing again, not the cape. You can see his pauldron, and he's still holding whatever it is he's holding in his right arm, which again looks like it would slip over his right forearm. But if you look at his right forearm, his gauntlet is there. So what the hell is he holding? If you didn't catch the scene that his right forearm gauntlet had fallen off to begin with, you're sitting here wondering what the hell is he holding in his arm? So not only does it make sense because you probably didn't catch it, but the gauntlet is on his right arm, so why is he carrying it? Supposedly all the parts that they took, that Swiss cheese ship, are on this sled. That Blurrg is pulling Kuiil on top, that sled, all those parts, and Mando? I don't think a Blurrg is that strong. Nor do I think that those are all the parts of his ship and they just fit right on this little sled. I also want you to notice that Baby Yoda's in his little pod. When they came here, Baby Yoda was riding in the sled. His pod wasn't there. They get back to Kuiil's camp and they show Mando's ship. Look at the Swiss cheese that is the ship. Do those parts look like those are all the parts to this ship? And look at the amount of damage done to this ship. Mando literally says it's going to take a maintenance facility and that it'll take at least days. So a maintenance facility with several workers, with a lot of light, all the proper tools and extra spare parts would take several days with trained mechanics. Yet we're supposed to believe that Mando the Airhead and 3-foot Kuiil are going to fix Razor Crest overnight under some makeshift lamp. We'll give Kuiil the benefit of the doubt that he worked in the Empire and has experience around different types of ships. But neither of them, without the schematics of this ship, should be able to 100% get this all back together. The average person, if you were to take them to a yard and it was a pile of pieces to a car, they would just scratch their head, never mind be able to put it all together. And even if you could manage to get most of the car back together, you would end up with loose screws and bolts and pieces because you have no idea where they go. Only the person that is assembling these at the factory and or someone that has the schematics is going to be able to put this back together. Yes, there are highly trained mechanics that can break down a motor all the way and then put it back perfectly. But this is someone that works on motors every day, that has years of experience, not an airheaded bounty hunter. Not a 3-foot Ugnaught that worked in a maintenance shop somewhere, and especially not overnight. Then they cut to the cockpit and everything's all new and perfect. All the toggles and switches are new, the dashboard, everything is new. 5 minutes ago there was wires hanging all over the place. It's so unrealistic. Who is writing this nonsense? You see sunlight, implying that they worked overnight and now the ship is back together. Granted, maybe this is 3 weeks later, but did they show you this? Do they in any way express or show you that this was weeks later? No. You're under the direct impression that they worked throughout the night and the ship is back together. Is that realistic to you? Even in the most advanced shipyard with 20 mechanics and all the best tools, is that realistic to you? Everything back together and working fine, the engines, the switches, everything is working just perfectly fine. But to add it to insult, everything is all shiny and pristine and like it was before it got stripped. Nothing scratched or out of place or crooked or marked or dirty. It's all literally exactly as before the Jawas got to this ship. Is that realistic? Or would there be grease and scratches and all kinds of things going on? Pieces missing? No, the ship is perfectly back like it was. Not to mention, how would Kuiil know how to work on a pre-Empire ship? I don't know how old Kuiil is, and I don't know exactly how much experience he has, but it seems pretty odd that a little Ugnaught that lives in the Outer Rim on a little desert planet knows how to reassemble spacecraft overnight. So Mando goes back into the cockpit, and again, everything is pristine. There's not a scratch or mark on the leather seats. The windows are all fine, perfect, no cracked glass, nothing's missing. All the switches, knobs, everything is lit up, working fine. A half an hour ago, there was wires broken and cut and sparking everywhere, pieces missing, and now the ship is as if it came off the shipyard. Remember the landing gear that I pointed out from Chapter 1 that never got addressed, never got fixed? Yeah, it's working just fine. You can see Mando here checking and firing up the engines. First they show the right side, or his left, and then the left side, his right. From the front, you see the engines glowing up orange-yellow. You can visibly see the engines glowing up. Next shot, he's flying through space. You cannot see the engines from the front, only from the rear. If you pay attention throughout this entire show, both seasons, you can only see the engines from the rear. Yet here in Chapter 2, when they fix the engines in bright daylight, you can see them glowing up from the front as he starts them. This is the only time in the entire show that this happens. So Mando flies out of the planet. Mando here in the cockpit. Look at his uniform. Look at his helmet. Perfectly clean. When was he ever around any water? When did he wipe himself off? They literally spent the night fixing the ship. The next morning the sun comes up. He fires up the engines. Kuiil says, okay, take care, I'm out, peace. And Mando takes off. When does he get cleaned up? When does he take a shower? When does he wipe off his helmet, mask, suit, anything? Never. Yet he's perfectly clean. That's the end of Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is very short. It's less than 30 minutes, which is another problem with the show. All the episodes are different running times. All my life, TV shows are the same length, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever. They're very carefully planned for commercials and runtime and all of that. This show is just willy-nilly, whatever length episodes. You've spent all this time and money and hype. Why not make 1-hour episodes? Why are we watching 28-minute episodes? And there's only 8 chapters. Chapter 2 had a lot less technical issues than Chapter 1, but it still has production problems, it still has lore problems, and the biggest issues is that it's just plain dumb. The story makes no sense, and we have advanced nothing. We have gone nowhere. If anything, we've gone backwards. Mando has not established or done anything. He made himself look foolish, his ship was totally destroyed and stripped, he got his ass trampled and nearly killed again. The only thing that was established here is that Baby Yoda can use the Force. That's literally all that we have advanced and accomplished in now the second chapter, not even the first. We're now going into the third chapter of this show, not knowing the point of anything, seeing that the Mandalorian is a chump and that Baby Yoda has the Force. This is all we've achieved. We've wasted now 2 episodes on nothing. No story building, no character development, no world building. We know nothing about the planets that he was on. He's just bouncing around. The most that we've learned is about Baby Yoda. This is supposed to be the Mandalorian show. It's obviously the Baby Yoda show. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the video. May the Force be with you.
Impressive. Most impressive.